I've been pretending to be somebody else since I was just 15. I don't know if the show was for them or for me anymore. I'm not sure, and I don't recall being born, but I remember being underwhelmed when I worked out who I was, because that didn't fit with any of the feelings I'd been feeling, the things I started thinking as a kid who didn't know how to be, but could instinctively pretend. Put on a show, was it for them? I have forgotten where this ends. Blinking in the light, merging into something. Something isn't right, something isn't working. No one on my side, no sense of where I'm standing. Half my fucking life caught somewhere in between. I have been waiting for someone to say they found out I'm a fake, a foundling fraudster on the take, a huckster hustling half his name around the world, and I reply, goodness knows you're right, I know that guy. That is to say, I do not know that man at all. After all, no one can. There's nothing there to know, it's just a show. Oh, the lights are on, but nobody is home. They kicked me out years ago, changed the locks and took my keys. My memory seen through a window like something I don't really own. Blinking in the light, emerging into something. Something isn't right, something isn't working. No one on my side, no sense of where I'm standing. Half my fucking life caught somewhere in between. Is it so much to ask to be offered some protection, to be let go by the past, to feel some acceptance, to find somewhere to belong, something to belong to, a place where I'm allowed anywhere but in between. Half my fucking life blinking in the darkness, stuck on the outside, sick and mostly harmless, a stranger to myself, still chasing that forgiveness for anything I did when I was somewhere in between.
Well, Frank Turner, welcome back to CKUA. It's so brilliant to have you here in this part of the world and in CKUA studios and on the heels of this brilliant new record, Undefeated.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be back again. I do love this part of the world.
Yeah, you're very well loved here and very familiar with this area as well for a long time.
I mean, it's going to sound like I say that everywhere I go, of course. But I do remember before, the first time I came to Alberta was in 2009. I was on tour with my friends in Gaslight Anthem.
Right.
And somebody told me before we did the Calgary-Edmonton strip, if you like, and
right.
Somebody told me before we got here, and not in a complimentary way, they were like, man, Alberta's the Texas of Canada. And I said, well, I have a Texas tattoo.
Don't mess with it.
And I love Texas very much, so I'm going to like Alberta. And I did, and I do. So here we are.
And you were telling us just before we started rolling that first show in Edmonton was at
the mall. Yeah, the West Edmonton Mall. Yeah, which, I mean, basically, I know it had been the biggest mall in the world. And then I think like about a month before I got here, South Korea built a slightly bigger mall. And I started ripping on the audience and saying, you're going to take that line down, build an extension, and no one found it funny. That people were genuinely kind of bummed out about it, and I felt bad.
Nonetheless, the relationship has flourished.
It has, yeah, absolutely. I seem to remember seeing a penguin in the mall as well. Is that likely? There was a kind of like zoo area.
Yes, strange.
We're getting thumbs up off camera. Yeah, and I mean, I've never seen a penguin in a mall before or since. So
okay, there you go. That's culturally resonant.
Thumbs up to Edmonton.
I think it would be fair to say though that you do have more than a passing familiarity with a lot of parts of the world. Texas, Alberta. I mean, you're coming up on 3,000 shows.
Yes. I've done something with my adult life. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to ask a little bit about that in a moment. But I mean, the song that you just shared somewhere in between, like, when I first heard the record, that one just like, it was like a thunderbolt out of the speakers for me.
It's an important song for me. You're not supposed to have favorites on an album. It's like having a favorite child. It's generally frowned on, but you do. It was a hard song to get right because it's about quite a delicate subject, shall we say, which, I mean, roughly put would be kind of imposter syndrome and kind of disassociation and that sort of sense of not belonging and all that kind of thing. And these are difficult things to talk about anyway. And also, kind of given my position in life, a lot of people are kind of surprised that I have that kind of insecurity. Do you know what I mean?
But you don't have it all figured out.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people kind of message me and ask for kind of advice, and I'm like, on things to do with kind of personal life or mental health problems or whatever. And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't have it figured out at all. So, it's sort of, and it's a song that can occasionally be a little intimidating to sing. But on the flip side of all of that, I'm very proud of it. It was a song that it came good, I think.
It sure did come good.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to hear it acoustically in this room too. So
it works. I actually wrote it that way, completely acoustically. It's one of those songs. My band, the Sleeping Souls, who are the best band in rock and roll, just FYI, we often work through several different arrangements of a song once I write it, which is a good discipline actually. My sadly departed friend Scott Hutchison from the band Frightened Rabbit gave me this tip. He was like, try covering your own songs. So you finish an arrangement of a song and you park it, and then you imagine that somebody else wrote that song and your job is to cover it and find a new angle on it, which is a really cool way of coming at an arrangement because sometimes you do find something interesting and new in it. But somewhere in between, it was originally an acoustic thing, then it was piano, then there was a point in time where it was an ambient noise track. Which is a field that I have some taste for. Actually, Canadian inspired as well. Cranky Records from out of Montreal in the 90s. It's one of my big nerd things. I own one copy of every single Cranky record.
You are very nerdy where it comes to music,
yes,
particularly obscure 90s
music. Yeah, well, I mean, so we're going off piece here, but why not? As a kid growing up in the 90s in England, sort of pre the internet, let's say.
Yeah.
When I was a young teenager, it was difficult to distinguish between American and Canadians. Like, do you know what I mean? It was, well, just as in it was like, they're from over there.
Right, yeah.
And so I had a bunch of kind of punk rock and post rock and hardcore and all those kind of things, bands that I liked, indie rock as well, whatever. And there was a moment in time as I got a bit older and did a bit more research and indeed the internet started and all the rest of it, where I suddenly kind of realized that loads of my favorite bands were Canadian. And it was like, I've got an affinity with the Great White North, apparently.
That's so beautiful.
But anyway, so Summer of Teen, it went through a lot of different iterations, should we say. And the one on the record's clearly my favorite one, and that's what we'll play for a full band live set. But it's nice to play it solo.
Yeah, it sounds so beautiful. And I think, there's definitely some elements of your being kind of a musical outsider in there as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, definitely. And like, I think the thing with that for me is like, as I say, it's a song about kind of not fitting in. And that's definitely been a thing I've felt on a personal level a lot in my life, but musically as well. I've always been a bit of a square peg in a round hole, and there are days when I like that. Sure. And when I started out doing my solo thing, I had been in a hardcore band, but in my early years I played shows with, there was sort of three different scenes. There was the kind of Mumford & Sons, Laura Marling thing, who were friends of mine. I played with them.
Yeah.
But I was a bit too punk for those guys in some ways. Then I would play shows with like kind of Gallows and that kind of punk hardcore thing, but I was the acoustic guy at
folky
those
dude.
shows. Yeah.
Right.
And then I also played a bunch of shows with people like Baby Shambles and Libertines and the Holloways and people like that, because that was my kind of social circle at the time. But again, I didn't really make any sense at all for those people. So, and like as I say, there are days when I feel sort of proud and grateful to be awkward, if you like. I mean, not least because I think that with a lot of bands, and I mean no disrespect to anyone by saying this, but if you kind of get lifted up by a wave of, a scene, however you want to put it, when that wave crashes, you go down as well. And having not come up on as part of any particular scene, it means I'm kind of bulletproof. Like, there are days when I wonder which kind of like scene revival thing. Yeah. Because like recently, like Funeral for a Friend, 100 Reasons, all those kind of bands have been doing a revival thing. And it makes me wonder which wave of revival is going to catch me. And the answer is none of them. But also, I don't need one because I'm still here.
Yeah, right.
So,
you're not getting lost in the undertow.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that song is so beautiful. And I mean, the album is very much centered in the here and now, but there's kind of a through line of sort of being in a conversation with the past and with 15-year-old Francis.
There was definitely a moment in time when it might have been a concept record. Oh, wow. It's not, and we're all very pleased about that too. Right. But the song Ceasefire was the kind of jumping off point for that, which is literally a conversation with my 15-year-old self. And there is a sense of kind of trying to kind of reconcile who I am now with who I thought I might have been when I was a kid. And there's a lot to that because, on the one hand, when I was a kid, I was very idealistic and very angry and all those kinds of things, but I was also kind of an idiot. And there is a big part of me that thinks that kind of sort of broad cultural idea that you should somehow retain some affiliation or some fidelity to your ideals when you're a teenager is like, but teenagers don't know anything at all. Like, I'm not going to be held hostage by a 17-year-old. But then I kind of am in some ways.
He's in there somewhere?
Yeah, definitely.
Saying, hey,
the prime example of this, my last record, FTHC, got the #1 slot in the UK, which was great.
#1 album in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, which was great. And it's not a thing that falls out of the sky. It took a lot of work to get that. Right. And so I was very pleased about it. But there was one little part of my brain that just immediately went, sell out. Because when I was a kid, my self-definition was the kind of person who didn't know or care about bands who are in the charts. Yeah. So there is that kind of sort of conflict, and so it's a process of reconciliation of, on the one hand, kind of explaining to 15-year-old me that life's more complicated than he thinks it is. Also that, like, I do think that I've kind of stayed true to some of those kind of punk rock ideals and all the rest of it. But also, some of those ideals are naive, politely put.
Sure. And there's beauty in that too. And I mean, the second song you're offering us today, Girl from the Record Shop.
Yes.
I don't know if that's coming from an overtly teenage.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. I mean, it's a song about being 14 and going to a kind of independent record store for the first time. And I was an awkward 14-year-old boy, and there was a girl wearing a Bikini Kill t-shirt, and so I immediately fell in love and never ever spoke to her. And it's a celebration of independent music culture as well.
So she's out there somewhere.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there is no possible universe in which that person will be able to identify themselves, and there is possibly a degree of kind of amalgamation of characters going on there as well. But it's more about record shops. One of the things I love about this song, incidentally, is a guy came to a show in somewhere, I think it was in Long Beach in California, and brought along a record player to give to me, because there's a line in the song, I don't even own my own turntable. And it's like, I do now. Like, that was a long time ago. Also, when you're on tour, you're carrying a suitcase. Like, I can't take a record. I mean, it's very generous of you, man, but I can't take a record player in my suitcase. Like, what do you think I'm going to do with this? But it was a very nice gesture.
I'm in love with the girl from the record shop. Sat behind the counter in a rock gold top. And every time she looks at me, my heart just stops. I'm in love with the girl from the record shop. I've been in every day buying so much vinyl. Don't even know my own turntable. Something in the smile makes me so unstable. Oh yeah, I'm in love. I'm in love. I'm in love with the girl from the record shop. She's been playing the Supremes and the Four Tops. She says her favorite record is Everything Sucks. I'm in love with the girl from the record shop. I've been in every day buying so much vinyl. Don't even know my own turntable. Something in a smile makes you so unstable. Oh yeah. Round and round like my heart got scratched. Day after day thinking through the racks. Couldn't find my groove, I'll be back to black amnesiac. Say heart attack. 1, 2, 3, I'm in love. I'm in love. I'm in love. I'm in love.
Well, it's an amazing song, and
Thank you.
I've been dying to know ever since I heard it, like, what were the records, if indeed this was a real indie record store, what were the records that you were buying then?
At that period of time, it would have been a lot of kind of, there was this indie store in Winchester, the town that I grew up in, and the guy who ran it and the people behind the counter, after a while, tuned into the fact that if anything had Epitaph or Fat Wreck written on the back of it, then I would buy it, kind of regardless. This is a period of time when, as I say, there's no streaming, there's no music on the internet, but they had listening booths and this kind of thing. Yeah. And you know, I bought CDs back then as well. I hate to reveal the truth, but it was like 1996 or whatever.
You didn't even have a record player.
Yeah, I bought a lot of kind of like, I mean, obviously you start with kind of, for my generation, Green Day and Offspring are the kind of gateway bands, and hats off to them for that. And then you get into NoFX and then Descendants and then Black Flag and then Down by Law and Assorted Jelly Beans and, you know, that kind of world of kind of punk and hardcore.
Yeah, and some of these people are your friends now.
I know, which is really weird. I mean, it's beautiful and I'm very grateful for it, but it's like, the example I always think of, I'm very good friends with a songwriter called Chuck Reagan, who was in the band Hot Water Music.
Right, yeah.
And we've toured together endlessly. When I was a kid, I graduated to buying records from mail order catalogs from like underground labels in the States, particularly No Idea Records from Gainesville, Florida. And they had an advert for a Hot Water record that had a really cool picture of Chuck on stage at the, I think it was called the Double Down in Gainesville, and he's just like, bleh, all kind of veins sticking out on his neck. And I cut it out and I stuck it on my bedroom wall when I was like 17.
Wow.
And now we're friends. And it's weird because, we hang out. We've been friends for like 15 years, but every now and again I go,
And I mean, as we record this, you're going to be playing on NoFX's last show ever.
Yeah, which is a great honor. I mean, also a sadness as well, of course.
Yeah.
And it's cool as well because we did so Fat Mike and I have been friends for a long time, and we did a split covers release together, which I was so honored by.
Yeah.
You know, the last one they did was with Rancid, and then they did me. And I'm like,
good.
That's my punk rock blue tick, is what that is. So we've been friends for a long time. We did a bunch of shows on their European leg of their farewell tour, and I kind of made my peace with the idea that that's the last time I was going to see NoFX play. And, wept a little on the side of the stage and all the rest of it. And then about a month ago, Kent, who's their tour manager, who's a dear friend of mine, called me up and said, "Hey, buddy," and asked if I would play the final show. And it's a long flight to get there, but I'm going to do it.
Well, I'm sure you've gone further for stranger occasions in your almost 3,000 shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's up there.
It's way up there.
Yeah, it's up there.
You are, as mentioned, about to cross that incredible milestone.
Yes.
You recently did a pretty quick and fairly clever uptick in numbers. Was it 15 shows in one day that you played?
15 shows in 24 hours in 15 different cities.
Oh my
goodness. I did actually do 24 shows in 24 hours just in London in 2009, but I was in my 20s then, right. And they were all in the same city.
Okay.
I was also, I will try and do the PG version of this. I had some chemical assistance for that process because those were what I like to think of as the bad old days. Right. This time around, and we didn't really document that one all that well, and it was chaotic would be the word, and it was for a music video. It's for a song called The Road. It's online. You can check it out. Yeah. And lots of people think that it's kind of faked in some way. We actually did it. But then, so we did recently. Yeah, we documented it properly. We went for the world record. Got the world record, I should say, as well. The pre-existing world record was 10. And when we finished the 11th show, my crew were like, "Can we please go home now? Like, there is no point in us continuing. We've already done this." I was like, no. And it was grim and awful. And my crew spent the whole time saying to me, "This was your idea. You can't blame anyone else. And we're never doing this again." But we did it,
But we
you know?
did it.
Yeah, so happy days.
And being non-chemically enhanced these days, how did you power through all 15 shows?
Coffee and donuts. Yeah,
Okay.
24 hours of coffee and donuts.
Strict regimen.
The worst part of it, so we did midday to midday, and we finished in Southampton, which is near where I grew up. But I live in Essex these days, which is about a 3-hour drive away. And we had a cab company who'd organised the transport for us and sponsored the attempt, which was very good of them. They offered me a ride home after the last show, and I was like, fantastic. I mean, I didn't want to be like jet lagged, you know what I mean? It was like, I'm going to stay up until bedtime that day.
Right.
But I then had a 3-hour cab ride, having not been to bed for 36 hours, whatever it was.
15 shows.
And I just, that was the hardest, weirdest part. I just thought I was absolutely losing my mind. Yeah, it was a very, very strange experience.
Well, we do have some coffee and some donuts here, luckily, so
Yes.
we can power you through to sound check.
I have coffee right here. And very nice coffee it is too.
It is. We only want to offer the best to our guests, Frank Turner, and we're so grateful for your company. You've been so generous with CKUA over the many years.
Thank you so much for having me again. It's a wonderful place to stop by.
It's always a huge pleasure, and we hope that we get to renew this acquaintanceship again soon.
Oh, yes.
And there's one more gorgeous heart stopper that you're going to share with us.
I am,
called
and I want
Letters.
to tell you a quick story about it, if I may. It's a song called Letters, and it's about a pen friend that I had when I was a teenager. Again, going into this theme that we've been discussing. Yeah. We met on a camping holiday when I was a kid. I was into metal at the time. I was about 13, and she was into punk, and she sniffed at my Korn hoodie. First Korn album still slaps, by the way. But she was like, you should listen to Pennywise. And I'm like, who the hell are Pennywise? Anyway, so we exchanged addresses because, again, email's not a thing at this point. And she sent me mixtapes of like Black Flag, Minor Threat, Dead Kennedys, all that kind of good stuff. And we wrote to each other for about 3 years, and then it petered out, and I didn't hear from her again until about 3 months ago.
What?
When this song was on the radio in the UK, and she heard it, and she sent me an email and just said, because my email's public domain, and she sent me an email and just said, I might be going crazy, but is that song about me? Also, how are you? Kind of thing. And then the best part is that she apologized for breaking off the correspondence, which was such a relief because I couldn't really remember why it ended, but I assumed it was probably my fault. And she was like, oh no, I got a boyfriend and he wasn't cool with me writing to this weird dude. So that was the end. And she's doing very well. She's happily married. She's got kids and all the rest of it. None of that end part is in the song.
No,
obviously.
I think maybe she'll send you a mixtape again one day.
But I think that people should know there's a happy ending to the song.
Oh, the power of music.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Frank, thank you so much for this. It's just such an incredible joy to have you
Thank you
here.
for having me.
Frank Turner, live in CKUA's Performance Space.
We used to write each other letters, such beautiful letters. And every time I'd see my name in her handwriting on an envelope, my day would get a bit better. I didn't forget her. How could I ever forget her? But now all that's left on my desk in the dust and neglect is some envelopes empty as ever. It's a terrible thing to share everything that you got with one person who matters and have it not really matter. We used to write each other letters, then one day you dried up. Just imagined you were kind of tied up. God only knows I didn't want to impose, so I just bit my tongue with a stiff lip until it was far too late for me to even contemplate writing again just to ask where you've been. So I guess we just settled on stalemate. It's a terrible thing to share everything that you got with one person who matters and have it not really matter. We used to write each other letters. Yeah, it's a terrible thing to share everything that you got with one person who matters, have it not really matter. We used to write each other letters. Yeah, God damn it now, this wasn't part of the plan. I let you down, but please understand, you have to bear with me if I'm messing this up, because the truth is I'm useless at opening up. Both of us know it wasn't love in the end. You were more of a teacher, a distant best friend. I've been missing our missives and mourning our youth, and if we got on the phone we'd tell each other the truth. Say I'm tired of just making do. tired of just muddling through. Aren't you tired of making do? Tired of just muddling through. It's a terrible thing to share everything that you got with one person who matters and have it not really matter. We used to write each other letters, but it's a curious thing to doubt everything that you got. Get saved by a stranger you knew when you were younger. I need to try and put it better. I need to write another letter. I need to write another letter. I need to try and put it better.